Good morning, everybody. It is now 10 o'clock and the event has started. Thank you for everybody who's attending. There is a Q&A. If anybody has any questions, please make sure to send them and we will be sure to respond to them when we have our second half. I'd like to first introduce our presenters today. There is Karen West, Vice President Common Services at ACO Company Group, Trish Lakiv with Loblaws, Greg Toshna with DHL Group with Relay Logistics, Tim McCaffrey, President and CEO of Supply Chain Canada, Alberta, Sean Clark, Senior Associate, Office Sales and Leasing with Avis & Young, and myself, Cindy Clark, with Women in Supply Chain Incorporated and Avis & Young. Hello, everybody. Sorry for the delay starting. I just want to quickly show the names of our presenters today. We have Karen West, Trish Lakiv, Greg, I apologize for the pronunciations, Greg Toshna, Tim McCaffrey, Sean Clark, and myself, Cindy Clark, with presenting today for this event. I want to thank everybody for attending. I want to first start with everybody, thank everybody for joining. This is the first WISC webinar. So I hope everybody will be patient with me and understanding as I will be learning as we go, just like everybody else is out there. So welcome and thank you very much. Everybody who's out there, please do not hesitate to send any questions. And like I said, we will be working on answering those when we take our break. We will start off with, we have all the questions that were submitted. So you've all faced uncertainty at one time in your career, and we have curated a list of questions that from the audience to gain your knowledge on success during uncertain times. So the first question I'm going to put out, and then we'll randomly go through everybody. I'll just ask you guys individually, is which companies have the resilience during this crisis and have job opportunities for new graduates? The oil and gas is forced to evolve. Which other fields like agribusiness, healthcare, logistics in the supply chain would you consider? So when I ask you the question, if you guys would take a moment to sort of give some background in your history from what you've come from, where you started, and sort of how you kind of move into that question. We'll start off with Karen, if that's okay.
Certainly. Good morning, everyone. My name is Karen West. I'm the Vice President of Common Services for ACO Limited. I'm based in Edmonton. I spend quite a bit of time in Calgary. Throughout my career, I've had the pleasure of working in multiple industries. I spent a significant amount of time in telecommunication distribution, wire and cable distribution, worked throughout Canada, worked overseas in Hong Kong. Had responsibility for distribution opportunities within China. So I have a very in-depth knowledge of today's current world on supply chain. Departing from telecommunications, I shifted over to healthcare. I spent approximately 10 years for some very large organizations in manufacturing of basic wound care opportunities, so consider it medical device. A mask in today's climate is a medical device, as well as working for organizations like Johnson & Johnson in Ontario, as well as McKesson, who is the largest pharmaceutical distributor in Canada based out of Calgary. And then shifting gears again, taking all of the knowledge that I have from supply chain, service centers, shared opportunities for cross-functional teams and supporting ACCO in a common services opportunity. So not only do I lead supply chain, I lead facility services, fleet services, travel services, project management office, and really what it's been for myself throughout my entire career is leveraging skills and opportunities and the capability of influencing people through a collaborative effort to drive synergy and efficiency through any organization. So my key message is uh, every organization has a supply chain, a bit, a part, or all of it. And all the skills that are developed as we move and mature in our careers enhance the overall experience, regardless of industry. Thank you.
I will let Greg now do have his introduction, and then we'll go back to to working on the questions there.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Greg Toshnick, Director of Operations for DHL Supply Chain. I work for a member company called Relay Logistics. My history has been basically all over the map. Started in sporting good distribution right out of high school. Worked through that during university and kind of had a good career in that for 13 years. Went on to paint and sundry supplies for a local company in Calgary. I've done electrical distribution and motor controls in Alberta, followed by aftermarket motorcycle and ATV parts, and then landed the last 13 years of doing pharmacy distribution, including RX drugs, narcotics, for different companies. So valued growth over the years. There wasn't any formal logistics training or programs out there. I was basically learning on the job and kind of growing your career that way. So, you know, based on that first question, I would think everybody's kind of seen what the pandemic's done in the media. Core logistics companies that deal with, you know, retail, pharmacy, food, drugs, toilet paper, as you guys know. The essentials is what we've seen over the last little while. But everything, like Karen says, is touched by logistics in one way or another through all industries. So, yeah, that would kind of cover off my answer to the first question. So.
Trish, I will let you have your chance.
All right, thank you. My name is Trish Lequier. I'm the Senior Director of Food Safety for Loblaws West. We provide, or we have oversight of food safety programs in 240 retail locations, 8 DCs, and I'm additionally the National Food Safety lead for supply chain. Within Loblaws, we have approximately 22 distribution locations. Been with Loblaws for slightly over 15 years in this role. My degree is actually from the University of Manitoba with a major in agriculture based in food science. So my background is more in the manufacturing side of things. I started out in Calgary, Manitoba many years ago, making French fries for McDonald's. Moved on from that to making a food service type products. Chili for Tim Hortons is probably one of the major items we made. Moved from there to Edmonton, made ice cream. So a lot of the ice cream treats that you enjoy, Haagen-Dazs being one of them, is the thing I was focused on. And then from there went into chocolate. So I was dealing with the quality side of Nestle chocolate. So Kit Kat, Smarties, Coffee Crisp was my day-to-day evaluation of what's going on. Eating, checking it out, making sure the quality was good and it actually was safe to eat. From there, I moved into Loblaws, and in Loblaws, my role is actually in making sure that food safety components are being managed both within retail operations as well as supply chain. So my involvement in supply chain is more from the compliance side, which and one of the panelists I actually do some work with, but I actually audit his facility. So, you know, I'm generally not the person anybody is looking forward to seeing. Seeing me generally means that an audit is coming. So spending lots of time understanding supply chain and the implications of manufacturing and supply chain. It becomes very important when you're looking at an audit from an audit standpoint. We want to make sure that all the components are doing everything we can to make sure it's an efficient system as well as a safe system for all our consumers and all the products that we're seeing. So it doesn't just help to get things to the right place at the right time, but they have to be in the right condition and at the level that people want to see them. And I think, you know, the message I probably haven't been thinking about this for a while as well, is that nothing is a straight line. And in what you see from everyone, the things that we learn and we pick up along the way make us who we are and where we're able to focus on. So, and that's it for me. Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you, Trish. Appreciate that. Tom, we will move on to your response.
It's always a challenge to figure out what kind of sector that you're most interested in. Coming out of high school, so I was a child of the 80s in Alberta, which was a pretty difficult time. Arguably, maybe this one is slightly worse, but the 80s wasn't a lot of fun here. There wasn't a lot of work to do. And when I came out of high school, I couldn't afford to go to university, probably didn't have the grades to go. Took me till I was 40 to get my MBA. So I had a career path where I started off in a warehouse because that was a job I could get. And in fact, I actually worked at Walmart for the first 6 months of my life because it was the only full-time job I could find on the night shift. Because Walmart didn't have day shift jobs at the time. It was a pretty challenging economy that I came into. I didn't have education and I had to find a job. And I started off in the warehouse. And now today I'm the CEO of Supply Chain Canada. So, you know, there is as Trish said, there is a strange and wonderful thing that happens through your career. Sometimes you have to take jobs opportunistically, but you should try to have a longer term focus and a strategy of where you wanted your career to go. And it's okay to be a warehouse person for your life if that's what you want. And I loved working in the warehouse. Also did logistics, and I was a manager, supply chain manager in aviation for many years. So I went from Walmart into working in a warehouse and software, working in a warehouse for a hardware company, a computer hardware company, then switched from that into aviation, which is where I learned the most and spent the bulk of my career. Part of that was because I didn't want to go into oil and gas. As things changed and shifted back for me, being a kid of the 80s and having parents that lost their house and all of that kind of stuff in the bust that happened back then, I was kind of leery of oil and gas for most of my career. So I spent the bulk of it in aviation, switched into steel manufacturing, spent a lot of time as a general manager in both of those sectors, and then eventually went into government, now back into not-for-profit world. So my career has been pretty diverse, and it started off as a truck driver, a warehouse guy, and you know, I grew my skill sets from there. And so you've got to choose the sectors that you're interested in to a degree, but sometimes you have to be opportunistic and take the chance. And my attitude was always that if things were going to be tough for the company, that I was going to be the last person shutting off the lights when I left. And so I brought a work ethic with me to every job that I've had. I did build up my education side as the years went on, and you know, have found success even through challenging times. Sometimes you can't always pick and choose. You've got to take the opportunities that are available to you, but have a strategic vision and a 5-year plan of where you want to go, and direct your efforts, whether it's education or otherwise, towards building that side of your career.
Thank you, Tom. I appreciate that. But during this whole morning's conversation, resilience is definitely going to be a key conversation piece. So I am going to now let Sean answer this or give an insight. It's obvious that he's going to be the youngest of this group, but he gives sort of a really good bridge that circumstances in terms of challenges are also recent. So he brings a different perspective that the audience might get a better sense of than some of us that are maybe a little bit older. Sean?
Thank you, Cindy. So my name is Sean Clark. I'm a commercial real estate broker at Avis & Young. So my team specializes in office, sales, and leasing. I'll give you an example of being nimble in this market. My team was actually the #1 producer in Canada for April and #2 in Canada for March. And the reason why that is because we are open-minded in times of uncertainty, and we're always searching for leverage in every market. And one thing I want to touch on is starting with my career. When I was 14 years old, I was a shippings receivings clerk for an industrial company. I swept floors, I would receive skids, I would put parts away, I would paint, and your career grows and you expand from, effectively you can go anywhere with your career, and that's what I'm trying to get at. I lived abroad for a short period of time working for an international management consulting firm, helping manufacturing firms expand globally. There's a lot of opportunities in the supply chain for youth because we're nimble and we're not connected. And what I'd like to share today, I guess going back to the question, is which companies have the resiliency during this crisis? When you think supply chain, you don't have to think of a product necessarily. There are a lot of service organizations that are available, real estate being one of them, consulting being another one, where you're supporting manufacturers. Those are organizations that are always in need because there are so many organizations always looking to be nimble and need support. So don't think you need to follow a product. Look at organizations that are leading the industry of service support. Those are also great ways to always have a job. And when you're in the supply chain, look at roles where you're trying to increase business development, sales-based roles. They're very difficult, and they teach you who you are as a person. And they're always in need. People always need to sell. People always need to sell a product or some sort of service. And from my experience, it's had great job security, and it's often overlooked simply because it's such a broad term. But that would be my answer: is look for the service industries and look at the sales-based business development roles. Those are always exciting for younger people starting their career.
Thank you, Sean. I appreciate that. Just to sort of wrap up, and if anybody wants to interject on that, one of the messages that I picked up from everyone's conversation is that, as Trish said, there's no straight line. Nobody came into doing what they're doing with that goal in mind where they are now. When you left university, you had one anticipated idea. But even when you finish your degree, you're not 110% sure what you're going to be offering. The best thing you can ask yourself is, what am I capable of doing, and what am I willing to contribute? So as Sean said, look at other industries, take a look at what's happening outside of what you would consider. If you're taking a look at a multinational company, what changes they're having? Where is the market changing? I'm going to take a really quick snapshot to show a screenshot of just something that gives you an idea that you need to take a look at what's changing in the market. Back in March, this shot was, I found it showed where the changes were in terms of people or consumers' changes in purchasing. What was changing in their needs? Now this is in March. I don't have current. But the issue is that things are changing, industries are changing, companies are readapting, and they're trying to prepare themselves. So in terms of what companies are resilient, comes down to what companies are doing. So if you look and do your research, find out who is doing what, where they're going with it globally, what are the challenges they might be facing. Ask yourself, what have I learned? What do I bring to that experience? And how can I offer my knowledge to be a supportive employee and gain a foot into that? But you need to know what the companies are doing, what the market's changing. Does it look like it's long term? And if you don't know, then that's when you start to source out and ask others, professionals, like on this webinar. But it really comes down to resilience is taking a look and finding out who's doing what, how are they doing, and what is the impact of what you can bring. Doesn't matter if you're in finance, marketing, if you're in logistics, procurement, where what do you have to offer? What do you know, and what is the market doing? But it takes the research. I'll move on to the second question that kind of really moves forward on this. Some of you have a global reach or have an awareness of global as well. But what job opportunities are being created in the new global market, and what additional areas should we be studying so we are more prepared for the evolving supply chain? And I will make a note here, or mention again that Tom said that he got his master's in his 40s. I think I was finishing mine off in my 40s. So when it comes to learning, I haven't really stopped. So I will let Greg take a talk on this, because you're seeing more of a global footprint probably, and I will let you start with an answer.
Yeah. Well, for my current company, DHL Supply Chain, we are a global company. Some of the things that have, materialized over the last while, I would say over the last 5-6 years, more automation in our sites, looking at anything from picking robots to automated floor scrubbers to autonomous vehicles. Because we're a global company, we can look at a lot of these different technologies to put in for our clients in our sites where it makes sense. But also on top of that is data analytics. That has been a big one for the industry, of trying to standardize a lot and pulling out a lot of the data to make good decisions in business. A lot of good programs are out there to synthesize all of this information that we're collecting on productivity, quality, and that seems to be a growing industry. I know Mount Royal has just recently put in the data analytics lab with the industry here in Calgary, really looking at what, getting the practical experience of that aspect for logistics and for the industry. So there's a lot of that. I call it the sexy logistics and sexy supply chain, but you got to know the basics as well. But it is an exciting time being in the industry for over, I don't want to date myself, for a few years. There's some exciting technology in it, and it seems it's nice to be partnered with a company that wants to look at that and put that in there for its employees to make life easier for their day-to-day tasks.
So if being in that organization with DHL, Greg, what would you say though, that in terms of seeing students coming out or even somebody who's having to transition or facing some challenges, what learning would you recommend in how the industry is evolving in your space with DHL?
For us, we target a lot of the college logistics students, but not necessarily logistics. So we do a lot of heavy college recruiting across all of our sites in North America. What we look for, because a lot of these entry points are at the supervisor position, is leadership skills. So dealing with people is a big component. Having the technical experience and well-rounded logistics supply chain knowledge is a benefit. But what we look at is, and I'm going to call them the soft skills, which sometimes aren't, soft. They're probably the harder skills. How you interact, how you lead teams, because that's where I found in my career, the growth was moving up the corporate ladder, is leading teams to get to that next position, and how you interact and how you treat others and how you lead, whether it's a functional department or if it's a whole distribution center, is critical to kind of set the tone. So that's sort of the things that we look at when we're doing our college recruiting is, past experience is nice, but, have you done any leadership and what have you done in school? Some of your projects, have you been on some of the committees and associations, and have you volunteered? What kind of leadership skills have been there? So that's kind of for DHL, when we do our college recruiting, we look a lot at that aspect and not so much at, the technical experience, because we're looking for leaders to start their careers.
Great, thanks, Greg, appreciate that. Tom, I'm going to pass this to you and let you give us your input.
Yeah, I think that, it's interesting you talk about the soft skills and different things like that. I think that, at the end of the day, the opportunities are there to lead. And I think for us as an organization, as Supply Chain Canada, one of the things that we're looking at providing to our members on the professional development side is finding ways to connect them into the skill sets outside of the things you learned at university, the networking opportunities, the ways to broaden your network. And I think as students, you come out into the world and I think you can see the opportunities to network are limited. And I think that's where an organization like us can really lend a hand and give some opportunities to the students. And so, we'll offer some information on that towards the back end. But I think that there are things within your network and using social media in the right way to sort of develop your reach, I guess, out into the different areas of supply chain. So I think that for us, we're looking at ways. I actually took a couple notes while Craig was talking, because we're trying to grow our ability to support supply chain individuals in their career development, and I think that's where an organization like us can really lend a hand to the individual. But so I think from that perspective, if you can look for areas to grow and ways to communicate out to the industry where your skill sets are and what you've done in the past, I think that creates a great, I guess, something good for your resume and your ability to communicate that, unlike what I'm doing right now, which is communicating it very poorly. So I'll stop there and let somebody else chime in.
Thanks, Tom, I appreciate that. Trish, I will let you answer the question.
Oh, thank you. So again, a little bit different. I'm coming more from the grocery channel of life, I guess. What we're really seeing as a result of this pandemic and things were moving along this route, and the pandemic has just made us move a whole lot faster, is the differences in how people actually get their groceries. So what we're seeing an awful lot more these days is people coming and ordering through online systems and coming and picking them up, or delivery mechanisms. And I think on your chart, Cindy, you had Instacart noted on there, which is one of the big ones that we're involved in and developing with. And I think what you're seeing coming along is differences and changes in supply chain. Now, we're not talking about, you know, big reefer trucks traveling. We're talking about people's individual groceries, right? We're also talking about, and Loblaws is getting more involved in meal kits. So, you know, hey, Cindy, you decide, what am I going to have for supper? 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Put it into your PC app. By the time you get home, all the components that you need to make your meal for yourself, your guests, perhaps maybe you invite your neighbor over for dinner, is all waiting there for you to prepare. And well, the whole process of getting all that information has to go through warehouses, picking, and the supply chain to make sure that all of that gets to you. And the challenges is of making sure that it's chicken, it's cheese, it's dairy products, proper temperature control, product control, and getting it to you into the quality that you want to be able to prepare your dinner. So, you know, I think that what I'm definitely seeing in the market these days is and one of the comments that we have from the Loblaws is remaining curious. Life is changing at a huge pace, and traditional supply chain, traditional grocery isn't where things are going in the future. We need to be flexible. We need to have some different thoughts and ideas on what people actually want to receive. And it's just, you know, it's not my mom with her traditional grocery cart shopping for 2 weeks of groceries, and, you know, what she buys that during that grocery session is what we have to eat. You know, life doesn't work that way in my house. Hey, we can decide what we want to eat the night or in the afternoon before we actually start to look at it. And that impacts the supply chain and on our ability to be able to step in and meet our customers' needs. So not necessarily a global perspective, but definitely some changes that we're seeing within the grocery industry.
Thank you, Trish. And to some degree, what everybody is bringing into their stores or warehouses could have a global reach. So managing how that gets to your stores to support the customers does have that global connection. Karen, I'm going to give you the stage to respond.
Thank you. One of the things that's been most notable from my lens is, even though traditional supply chains exist, they're forced to change so rapidly today to address pandemic requirements. And if I, you know, shift on, you know, the requirement for every organization or every person on the planet today is PPE. But the thing to think about is not every organization has an ERP platform or technology that's all encompassing. So what it's really doing is forcing collaboration, facilitation from leaders. So Greg hit the mark. Like, I'm always talking about leadership. Leadership for me is not necessarily about having to lead a group of people. It's having every individual perform as a leader to drive to the greater good of an organization. Cloud-based technology has certainly made a significant improvement to provide the agility required in a supply chain today. So you don't need to be, unless you're in warehouse distribution, you know, logistics, loading trucks. You can be in a supply chain role sitting at your home like I am today, driving accountability and efficiency no matter where the source of product is coming from to support the business, whether it's product or a service. But really thinking about skills required, I would suggest even more so today, where you can't just pull a team together in a room and saying, okay, we need to fix this, how fast can we do it? You're really collaborating through this vehicle that we are right now, whether it's Zoom or Teams, to get everybody on board with what everyone needs to do to accelerate a process or a product. So think of it today from home services. Yesterday, you never thought anything about the furnace person coming in to clean your furnace. Well, today, you're not necessarily going to be so apt to have someone come in. So how does that look in future? And that's part of a supply chain, right? It's a service supply chain. It's not a product per se, but it has all the components that are required. So really, you know, coming back to, you know, Greg's comments and Tom and Trish, Leadership is really key because the integrity of how we operate today is an expectation because people are more vulnerable. They're trusting what's happening out there. They need to, but we need to have the integrity in supply chain to make sure we're delivering that right solution. Data analytics, it's only more prominent now and it needs to be done faster. So if you can look at your lens on how you're driving efficiency in the supply chain, just because we're in a pandemic, organizations can't afford to be off a price point, right? Bricks and mortar for retail is changing. It's changed overnight. So to Trisha's point, not only for groceries going to your house, hey, I'm an Instacart user. I started using it 2 weeks ago. I love it. Amazon, all of these organizations, they didn't reinvent themselves. They're capitalizing on an opportunity now, and they're advancing their tools faster than anybody. So is Zoom. So is Teams. They're capitalizing on the niche that everybody needs today, and that's where all bits and parts of this. It's all part of supply chain. We have the opportunity. We just need to think beyond bricks and mortar. We really need to push that. But leadership, data management, data understanding, translating that into an opportunity for an organization. But most importantly, you need to be able to influence and facilitate from where you're sitting right now without an audience at your desk or at your conference room. It's how can you influence the process and help people really at the end of the day, bring the integrity to the supply chain. That'd be my perspective. There's lots of opportunities out there. It's just finding them.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, Karen. One of the things that bricks and mortar is shifting. To say that we're losing or not going to see bricks and mortar in terms of a storefront like we're accustomed to doesn't necessarily mean everything is gone or eliminated. It's changing. So the large department stores might be evolving into a better warehousing and distribution where you can maybe go in, make your order, have it available, because there's still going to be some components that will be made accessible to the population. And that is sort of as an individual looking at where they're going to go, what's going to happen, where's my opportunities, is recognizing however you start isn't going to be where you're going to finish. But what do you bring and as a part to how that's going to shift and change and how you'll learn, because you're going to learn when you get there. And what can you bring so that you're able to contribute right away so that you have the right questions to ask. So on that, next question is more directed to a lot of questions that we received on how do individuals
answer, Cindy? Sorry, I don't mean to.
Oh, sorry, Sean.
Totally fine. Right. No, sorry. Do you mind if I quickly answer? Thanks.
Yeah, please.
I just had a couple quick notes. One, Karen had an amazing point. Data analytics and implementation in the service world, not necessarily a product. Data is more powerful than people had first considered, and it's actually being used today, as you can see, with the number of people infected and the people who are recovering, on driving future decision making. So from a younger age, if you can understand how to analyze data and how to implement it, you actually may have the opportunity to have a leadership role earlier than once expected. You know, someone who doesn't necessarily understand a product 100% because they don't have a decade's worth of experience may be able to come into an organization at a young age and add significant value because they understand how to capture the data, analyze it, and move a corporation forward. So if you're younger or you're new to an industry, that's a massive way to add value immediately to any organization across the board, on any country, in any province, data analytics. The second thing is the soft skill that I came up with after everyone brought that up is humility. I think a lot of people my age and younger come into an organization thinking that they know everything. And I guarantee you, at least I personally know that I don't. Humility is the most important thing to gain trust from any organization that you enter. And it's going to be the skill, especially in today's market where people really don't know what's going to go on in the future. For any person entering any new industry or any young graduate coming into any business, ask questions, understand that you're likely going to suck at what you start doing, and showing humility immediately will build trust. Thank you.
Well said, Sean. Thank you very much, and I apologize for not getting you in on that one.
Totally fine. Totally fine.
For full disclosure, I am related to Sean, so there was a little probably neglect on my part. I apologize. So I am actually going to start off with the next question. And I just want to make a quick note that everybody that is on, please, if you have any questions, send them to us now. We will, during our break, take a quick look at them so that we have an opportunity to answer them for you. And we can sort of push forward. We will have a good chance that we'll have a bit of a rollover from our questions from the students and everybody who submitted earlier. But I'll move on to this one. In order to stand out to a hiring manager, so now we kind of define sort of where opportunities are, what we're seeing as professionals in the industry. Now how does somebody now take all that knowledge and approach a hiring manager? How are they going to, in this digital platform, approach the hiring manager so that they stand out? So questions are, what should we present and do for companies to consider us for a career? Does a hiring manager differentiate between a diploma or a degree? Does focus or study offer better success? And how can we start a career with limited to no direct work experience? So this is sort of, now you've shared what's available, and I'm as a new graduate, which I'm not, now has to take that and say, okay, now what do I do? How do I stand out? I've got all this. What do I do? So I'm now going to actually have Sean start on this one, because this is something that, in terms of his exposure to technology online and say LinkedIn, would be something that he would have a better understanding of how to approach it if he was starting off again, knowing what is made available to him. So Sean?
Certainly, thank you. So to be quick here, to stand out to hiring managers, the most important quality is questioning. You need to ask the most important questions to you, because the hiring manager wants to see that you're able or interested to learn, period. Because like I said before, no matter what industry you enter, it's likely that you won't be the top. You'll need to learn. So questioning, very important. What should we present and do for companies to consider us for a career? Self-respect, show up clean, be eager, show up early. Like I said, the questions, organizations are changing faster than the hiring managers even know. They just need someone who's going to be adaptable. Second question, does a hiring manager differentiate between practicum, diploma, or a degree? In my industry, because we're very sales-based, we look for more soft skills. Obviously, we want to make sure that people have the underlying financial skills, like understanding how to analyze certain things. I'll allow some of the other speakers to touch on that point, because obviously there are certain qualities for product control and stuff that I'm sure require some level of diploma or degree. When it comes to focus, so this is really important too, because as Trish alluded to here, organizations such as Loblaws, which everyone thinks a grocery store is the most basic product service in the world, is probably one of the most advanced at this point. And everyone's trying to break into it. You see Amazon trying to do the data analytics and sort of the touchless service, and Loblaws is trying to offer the order and pick up at the door. I think you want to focus, but at the end of the day, you want to be open-minded. You want to come in blank slate and be open to listening and to accepting things as they come. These are all soft skills, by the way, and I think from my background, you have to realize, so I went to school in the US. I was very close-minded originally. I wanted to go into finance. And that's all I wanted to do. And since then, I've probably been in 6 different industries, 3 different countries, and it's really knocked me down and taught me that open-mindedness in any industry is what's going to get you anywhere. Listen, ask questions, open-mindedness. And then finally, how can we start our career with limited to no direct work experience? The one thing that people entering any industry have that no one in the industry has is perspective. So someone who's been in the industry for 30 plus years has lost perspective. And you can't see that. But the reason people hire new grads is not because they're looking for cheap labor. The reason they hire new grads is because they're looking for someone who is the future. You are the future. Whether you relate to that person or not, your purchasing habits, your goals, your dreams, your relationships, things that you are interested in, that is the future. And you bring a perspective that those people who are experienced do not have. And you're almost data in itself. You understand what the people of the future want typically more than the person who's hiring you. And I said humility before because obviously you want to learn the processes, but you want to show that you understand your generation, you understand what the market wants because you are the market. And that's what I would say would set you apart in an interview with the hiring manager.
I'm going to allow everybody, if anybody has something that they would like to offer to this this answer. That was very well done, Sean. And like I say, having someone who is closer to those that are graduating gives a different perspective because, like he said, and I'll take it with a bit of salt, that when you do get to a certain point in your career, you're focused where you're at, not necessarily recalling where you came from or what's occurring, and that's why you source out. Good leadership is those people who recognize you don't know it all and you need to bring people in that are going to help you to adapt to keep the business successful and strong. And that is another thing, is to say to somebody when you're choosing a company, choose a company that you feel that is looking forward and that has that interest, that wants to bring people in versus wanting to control it, because industries who are looking for just experience isn't thinking broadly if they aren't also bringing in new graduates, new information, new talent. Does anybody have something that they'd like to offer? Just
I do.
okay.
Hi, folks. It's Karen again. A couple of key ingredients for a successful interview with a hiring manager. Be ready to express your values and ensure that the culture of you actually, I'll say, do your homework on the organization you're interviewing with and make sure what you stand for is also what the company stands for. Hiring managers will see right through that. So integrity, caring, all of those important skills, especially if you're looking for a role right now today in pandemic times. People are, hiring managers are going to be looking for that. The second piece is this is probably how you're going to be recruited, through a video. So be prepared, be articulate. As Sean pointed out, make sure you're appropriately dressed, but most importantly, make sure you're clear on your message, because you're not going to have the in the room feel. It will more than likely be a colder environment where you're actually on video. That would be my guidance. But values and integrity aligning to corporate culture is really, really important to make sure that you're on par with that.
Thank you, Karen. I appreciate that. Greg, did you have something you'd like to offer on this?
Yeah, no, Karen's right on. When we do our recruiting, we look at the fit. It's got to be a fit for the employer and a fit for the new potential hire coming in. As you guys know, there's a lot of costs associated with recruiting, so you want to do it right the first time. So Karen's right on the mark. Do your research on the company. That's always nice to see when you're sitting down and talking to a potential employer. The other aspect too is, some companies actually tactically decide where they're going to get their labor from. And for DHL, ours is, especially for our leadership levels that we're bringing in, our mandate is about a third of internal employees we want to develop and grow. So they're going to go through succession planning. Third of our hiring for leadership comes from external sources that have industry experience to bring in possibly a fresh look. But also a third comes from college recruiting. And the reason we look at that is to grow our business. It's a good opportunity because anybody coming from right out of college, they don't have their roots. They're maybe more mobile. They can grow our business into new business opportunities. So we really focus on that, of bringing these guys in to get them to the next level, to maybe be an operations manager or director or a general manager in the site. So, some companies have that progression in there, and they are actually target college recruits to grow their business in that aspect. So that's kind of the format that we use in my current employment to, get a good diverse leadership group in all our sites. So it's actually mandated in some of our policies that we look to get that third and a third recruiting for leaders.
Thank you, Greg. Trish, did you have something to offer?
Yes, no, absolutely. And one thing that I think that people have a tendency to overlook that is really important when you're looking at hiring people is volunteer, right? Everything we do is an experience, right? And making sure that we gain experience and develop ourselves in everything that we do, and including volunteering and being involved in organizations, whatever they happen to be, picking up garbage, Girl Guides, whatever it is that you volunteer and you're involved in, you can develop yourself and your leadership skills, and being involved in those organizations improves your ability to step into a leadership role. And I would make sure that what you're doing, you're volunteering with purpose, and you're understanding the organizations that you're volunteering for, and things that you can do to further your experience and your involvement in that group. I'm big on volunteering. That is one of the things that when I'm looking at a resume, not only just work experience and from an education standpoint, but what have you been doing? You're not sitting at home playing video games for, your whole 4 years of your degree. What have you been doing to develop yourself from a volunteer? Would also add associations. What associations are you're part of, and learning and networking, and again, it's all about personal development, right? This is not a check, I got a job, I don't need to do anything further. This is an ongoing, lifelong development that we're talking about, and you need to be in the driver's seat to move this all forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Tricia. I appreciate that. Tom, I'll just make a quick note. Tom, I'll let you answer this, and then we will take a few minutes break so that we can refresh our coffees, if that's what everyone is drinking. It's early, so that's what we're hoping you're drinking. And then we will take a quick break, and then we'll come back. There are a few questions that have been submitted that we will review, and then there's a few questions that we have to wrap up from the pre-sent questions. So Tom, I will let you go, and then we will have a quick break.
Yeah, so just looking at the questions here, and I think, your resume tells a story, whether you understand that it does or not. And I think you're hearing a lot of different pieces about volunteering, about being in associations. One of the questions here says, does focus of study offer better success? Well, in great academic terms, the answer is it depends. It depends on whether or not you want to be a focused individual and a technical expert, or whether you want to be a CEO. Now, you might be able to do both with a very focused, honed in sense of what it is you want to learn and do. But generally, if you want to be a CEO, then you're looking more broadly, and you probably need to do some accounting, and you need to be a warehouse person, and you need to be a general manager, and you need to be a lot of different things to tell the story that's the type of individual that you've grown yourself to be. So, you know, it's difficult to know for sure how to answer that question, because it depends on where you view yourself in 5, 10, or 15 years. I would suggest 5 years is a great time horizon to look at, because in 5 years, a lot of life stuff happens and sometimes things course correct and change for you. Can you start your career with limited to no direct work experience? To me, the answer to that is of course, but it depends on what your expectations are. If you want to be the CEO with no direct work experience, that's probably going to be a challenge. But if you're willing to come into an organization and do anything, so my motto is with my staff is I'll sweep the floor if I have to. I don't care what it is I do on a day. I'm going to do what it takes to make the organization that I'm in successful. And that was my attitude when I packed boxes, and that's my attitude today. I will sweep the floor. So if your attitude is that, and you're willing to invest in the company, and you're willing to come to work every day and do what needs to be done and what's in front of you, then you are going to be successful. It might take you some time to be as successful as you want to be, but you will likely get there despite whatever's happening in the world. Because another thing that you've heard is how things are shifting. Companies don't stand still. You know, media talks about companies like they stand still and everyone's going to go out of business. But the reality is, as soon as the proverbial crap hits the fan, smart companies and smart people get to work to figure out how to take advantage and opportunity of that. So you will see shifting and you will see stress, but there will be opportunity. And there will be new opportunities in lots of new areas. And so it's difficult to give you the exact right advice, but being a part of an association, focusing on volunteering, focusing on things like getting out and networking and doing all of those things, that is the key to success. Being on events like this is the key to success. Being open, being available, and being there, you will find your way to where you need to be if you're out there in the world and doing the things that you need to do. If you think you're going to be successful by staying in your room in your college dorm or whatever the case may be, then you're going to have a much more challenging time landing on your feet regardless of the situation.
Thank you very much, Tom. I appreciate that. Just a quick note that to wrap up from what everyone's stated is when you're submitting a resume or you're communicating with a potential employee, isn't to tell them that I have done a job in terms of I was a store clerk. What did you achieve as a store clerk? What were your accomplishments? People want to know what you can do. It doesn't matter necessarily what your job title was. They want to know what your capacity is to complete and fulfill something. And that's what you need to remind yourself when you're presenting yourself. It's not that I was an assistant manager at a retail store. What did you accomplish? So really quickly, we're going to take a short break. If the presenters are good with this, and we can do it in say 5 minutes to take a quick break, and then we'll be back and we'll take a look at your questions, and we'll finish the couple questions we have on for the presenters, and then we will answer the questions that are being submitted. And if you have any questions while we're taking a few minutes, then please submit them and we'll be working on that. We'll be right back. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for allowing the presenters to have a quick break. And I see that we have some questions coming in, which we will look forward to answering. I just wanted to sort of turn this second part back into where we were when we finished. When we're talking about how to prepare and stand out with a hiring manager, are we also taking into consideration what we have in terms of new leveraging technology? Karen made a comment about how you need to use this stage to present yourself to those that are on the other side of the technology. And I'll be very honest, I'm sitting here for the first time hosting a webinar with Whisk Association, and I have no idea. So it's a learning curve, and feedback is important. And so youth has a better sense of this, and we're learning as well. So I'm going to ask, again, I'm going to start with Sean, and this is because I wanted to have him follow up on technology, and for example, how to use LinkedIn in terms of what we would see as a hiring manager or just making that networking. And then I will pass it on to the other presenters.
Perfect. I'm going to give an example, personal example of when I use LinkedIn to generate a very extensive job interview. So when I was about 21, 22 years old, I wanted to work in the US and I wanted to work for Amazon in Seattle. And what I ended up doing was I went on LinkedIn and I went on my university page and found a list of people who graduated from my university who worked at LinkedIn. I was very fortunate because I actually reached, and when you find people that you use to reach out on LinkedIn, find the most advanced, high up person you can find. And I found the top or the head of product management for private services or products that haven't even come out yet at Amazon. And I reached out to him through LinkedIn, sent him a message, said, hello, my name is Sean Clark. I graduated 2014. I'm currently doing this, and I'm looking to enter Amazon because of these reasons. Do you have time for a 10, 15-minute phone call? Or we didn't really have Skype back then or any type of video. So I said a phone call, and he obliged. It worked out. He connected me with the hiring manager, and I went 3 rounds because Amazon has a very extensive hiring process, 3 separate phone interviews through LinkedIn. The phone interviews, which would also be a form of technology, were very cold. It was difficult for me to read the person, and the tonality between an American tone and a Canadian tone are very different. So leveraging technology, you need to be open-minded and realize it's going to be awkward. We're not trained. Human nature is not digital. Human nature is physical, it's visual, it's verbal, and it's different. So the first thing to know with LinkedIn is it's going to feel cold, but people appreciate reaching out. The second thing I think I'll mention is reach out to the highest person you can reach who may have some sort of connection to you, familial wise, maybe a second connection or an alumni connection. And take a risk. Understand it's going to be cold. It's going to be awkward. And make yourself available through these forms. That's what I would say worked for me. The reason I did not get the job, the product was the Amazon Fire Phone. I don't know if you've ever heard of it because it never actually came out. So it was Amazon's biggest failure. They produced something like 90 million phones or something, and they never sold a single one because they got less than 1% market share. So it's, once again, that's a failure that I actually saved my career because it would have looked horrible on my resume. So once again, things work out for the best, but technology does work. It's awkward, and you should definitely be on LinkedIn. Thank you.
Yeah, I just will say quickly that I do a ton of business on LinkedIn. I have a huge network of over 9,000 people. I have had contracts. I've had this particular job came through LinkedIn. There is a ton of business that happens. I know there's a lot of people that don't believe in it. There's people that argue whether it's a version of Facebook. You see a lot of those types of conversations on the go. Is it important? I don't know if it's important to everybody, but I can tell you, as someone who's a very non-digital, somewhat old school individual, I do a lot of business on LinkedIn, so maybe I'm more new school than I give myself credit for. But it is amazing the reach that I have. The larger my network gets, the more reach I seem to have, and the impact is there. So I would highly recommend it. You don't have to be active. You can use it somewhat passively if you want to. I do agree. I think that's great advice, Sean, on recognizing that it is a different form of communication. And but I think even the strategy you used is really intelligent. There are people that won't connect with you. They won't get back to you. but there are equally some fantastic people who you would never think would connect with you who will through that platform. So I highly recommend having a strong presence, even if it's a passive presence, have a strong presence and represent yourself well.
Thank you, Tom and Sean. Sorry about that, but my technological landline decided to ring, so I had to grab it, and it doesn't have a mute button. So I'll let Karen, I'll let you respond to the same question.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of LinkedIn. It's been very successful for myself in my career, and I'll give you a couple of tips. Add some recruiters to your connections, and you'll be surprised at how much recruiters network across the continent, let alone within your local town. And recruiters are lined up. Some of them are contingent based on the size of an organization, but some of them are contingent based on industry and an industry that you may be interested in. And I give you that little bit of a leap. You can use LinkedIn to tap into people in different industries and ask them for help. It doesn't mean you're asking for an interview. Find out about their industry. If you reach out to someone, they want to brag about what they do. They want to tell you about all the good things their industry is because they're lobbying for really good people. It's an opportunity to get in the door. I've done it in my past, and it is remarkably refreshing to have that conversation, to understand, can you actually fit? Are you actually interested in the industry that you're trying to apply for? And you get an advocate in the organization that said, yeah, you know what, that person spent, did all their homework, talked to me. It's just another avenue to get in the door to have a really good, solid conversation. But LinkedIn can be a really powerful business tool. If you, to Sean's point, you connect to a lot of leaders, you get a really wide and broad network, but leverage it. Recruiters, hiring managers, and it's a great advocate because they do connect, and you're connecting to their network, so it only gets bigger and better. That would be my thoughts there.
Thank you very much, Karen. Does anybody else have anything that they'd like to offer around using LinkedIn?
Just a comment. I had a colleague, new colleague of mine in Loblaws, actually reached out to the person whose position we were hiring. So this lady moved on from Loblaws, and this person who was in the midst of an interviewing process reached out to the person that left the company, which, from taking a look at it standpoint, they spent time and energy to make sure that they talked about culture and fit. And then Karen talked about that. And asking somebody who's left the company what they liked about the job, what they liked about the company, it's really an opportunity to understand what that person is potentially getting into, because the individual no longer works for the company and doesn't necessarily have the same vested interest in what's going on. You can get some really good understanding. And the hiring manager was severely impressed that that person took the time to reach out to somebody who was well known within the company and well respected and had decided to leave. But it's not just reaching out to the CEO and ask them what they need to think. It's reach out to context and different people and get some understanding of what it is that they do, what the company does, what's great about the company. Does the culture fit? Does my values fit? Those things are all very, very important pieces of your career. Thank you.
Thanks, Trish. I appreciate that. Anybody else, or are we good for going on to another question? Okay, great.
Yeah, I'll just add really quick. So when I was asked by Cindy to do this and forward my LinkedIn, first thing she said was, you need a picture on there. So I'm going to take the one side that, I don't really utilize that tool as much as I should. I'm really bad at getting back to requests. I'm not on that platform a lot, but the one thing I can say that, Karen mentioned is I don't try. and I get a recruiter reaching out for opportunities almost once every 2 months at the minimum. So put it into perspective, if you did try and you did use that platform, there'd be some pretty good success probably coming your way for opportunities. So.
Thank you, Greg. I appreciate that. I do have one question we're going to wrap it up with after the other questions that came online. Tricia, there was one that came specifically to you. I don't know if you had a chance to see that. Came about how do you price cost your afternoon pick and delivery for dinner service to create enough margin. I don't know if this is in your line, if this is where you're going to land, but you can respond.
Sure.
How best.
Yes. Well, yeah, as far as costing goes, I am so far from costing. It's, you know, I don't know. I know that when we start thinking about differences in how we actually approach business, this is what people want to have to happen, right? I don't want to think about, you know, what I'm going to serve for dinner a week in advance, right? It's the afternoon. You know, it's even a challenge to try and do first thing in the morning when I'm, you know, getting up and leaving for work to think about what am I going to serve my kids for dinner, right? I've got ringette practice and I've got a work activity, right? And people want to be able to know what's going to be serve good food for my family. Now, from a costing standpoint, you know, I'll leave that to the folks that do all the accounting, and more what we're looking at is how do we service our customers? How do we get to people the things that they want to have, the conveniences that they want to have, the products that they want to have, and then, you know, figure out how to set up systems in order to achieve those goals, right? And the more what you're seeing, you know, I'm not sure that people would have expected, you know, the types of deliveries we could get to our house, you know, the fact that I can get hot food at lunchtime within 20 minutes of when I actually put that order in. You know, my parents, I'm sure, are completely shocked and don't believe it's true, right? We need to keep evolving and keep thinking beyond what we're seeing today, and figure out a way to make it that there's a profit behind that. It's profitable, and that we can own that type of market.
Okay. Thank you,
Thanks,
Trish.
Cindy.
And the gentleman that submitted that, I will make contact with him at another point so that we can get that information to him. Next question I have here is, how do students or anybody that's coming in from outside of Canada present themselves, or is it something that they should be concerned with in terms of coming from another country? They're not native to Canada. Is there an obstacle or is there an opportunity for them as they're approaching the job market in Canada? Does anyone have an answer for that? Karen?
Yeah, I think what's really important is that you clearly identify your transferable skills, right? So unless you're going to be a physician or a surgeon where you need your accreditation in Canada or US, depending on where you're going, supply chain accreditation is very different unless it's a very, very specific skill set. What's really, really important, though, I can't stress it enough, is clearly defining your transferable skills and capabilities. And then, you know, from my perspective, it's neutral ground.
We actually have a tool that will be rolled out here soon. It hasn't been released, but it's been developed to help explain transferable skills as well. So you can plug in if you're from another sector and you want to get into supply chain, or you're from another country and you want to translate your skills to the supply chain sector. There's a tool that we're just working through the final details. It'll be available both in an app form and online to help you to do that. So I think you know, it's not an insurmountable thing, and I think there's lots of opportunity in supply chain. But I do think communicating your skills in the right way is important and can be a challenge. So we're trying to come up with a tool that will help support people to do that and help support industry to understand what those transferable skills are as well.
No, that's great, Tom, and Karen. One thing for people to realize is it's not necessarily where you came from. The company wants to know what value you're going to bring, and don't enter into any hiring situation thinking that, well, just because I'm either abroad or I'm not, I don't think I'm, a female or a male or I'm this or I'm that. You are who you are. What you bring doesn't matter where you're coming from. It's your skill set and what you're bringing to the company. The good hiring manager, a great company, doesn't take all that into consideration. They might want to balance language, but that's not insurmountable. It's something that everybody will work around because it is just so common now. Nobody looks at that. You're from there, so that's not going to work. Sometimes if you're from another location, you can actually bring more value to a local organization because you do bring a new perspective. So do not question that. Don't hesitate from applying for sure.
One thing, actually, do you mind if I quickly add? Just
Absolutely.
I have personal experience. I worked in Munich, Germany for 6 months, and so the first thing I'm just looking at the question here, especially if you still don't have the travel and work permits. So when I was interviewing, the way I actually sold myself was, it's a German-based company that operates with manufacturers in the BRIC countries, Brazil, Russia, India, China. The one connecting language between all those countries is English. And what had actually happened was the German company did not have people as skilled in English as I was. So I had found the opportunity through a connection in Calgary. I interviewed through Skype, I think 2 times. And the value that I proposed was my experience traveling abroad and my very strong English speaking skills. So what I would even argue is, as business in Canada and North America becomes global and you're purchasing from foreign countries such as China, India, and these are just, I'm obviously just throwing these off the top of my head. Those are cultures that North American countries do not fully understand. And if you come from those cultures and you have a deep insight into those cultures, you can add tremendous value to purchasing companies or organizations looking to expand their sales force into other areas. Being from another culture may actually be a benefit. And just look at it from both angles, right? You can actually find greater leverage being from another culture than from simply being from the local city and trying to expand abroad. So that was my point. And I don't speak German either, so it works out.
Well, mention how long you studied it, though. Thank you very much, Sean. I appreciate your input. Does anybody have anything that they want to add to that, or are they good? We'll move on. Now, there's another question that sort of goes back to the first one in terms of being international. Is there opportunities for students who are over 40 and experiencing, that don't have this experience in the career they're going to? I would venture to say, again, it's not necessarily experience in the job you're going into. It is what value are you bringing from your past that can benefit an organization. So it's, again, if you're new, what have you been doing? If you've been busy and you've been working, that's a start. That's your start off point. But does anybody have an opinion that would be something that people would object to? Anything that you guys have seen in your organizations? Tom?
So I guess my advice around this, again, kind of goes back to the resume, how you're communicating who you are and what you're bringing to the table, no matter what country or what your background is or how little experience that you have. And I'll put it in another context for myself from my own experience. For every $10,000 of income you want to earn in a job, it takes about a month to replace income. So let's say you have a $100,000 a year job right now and you want to switch, or you'd like to achieve a $100,000 a year job. You need to invest time, and part of the time you need to invest is into your resume, into your interview skills and all of these different things. But who you are and how you're presenting yourself on LinkedIn and your resume, you need to develop the story, and you can't just do that once and have it be static. The way you communicate and how it starts to land, what you're learning in each of those months that you're putting towards achieving whatever kind of goal you are in your job, in the job you're trying to achieve, is if you're putting resumes out and you're not getting a response, then there's probably something wrong with the resume. If you're getting responses and you're not getting any callbacks for a second interview, there's probably something wrong with your interview skills. And it's that searching for a job is a job in and of itself, and it's something you need to get better at. And how you communicate who you are. From my own experience, communicating who I was as a general manager in a resume was different than communicating who I am as a potential CEO. The roles are different, the expectations are different, the type of experience that people are looking for is different. If I had just used the same resume in the same static format with the same wording, I probably wouldn't have had the same success that I ended up having. So you have to learn by putting yourself out there and how you're communicating who you are. More so, it's about what you're communicating rather than the information itself. So learn to communicate it differently and you might have different success, but age is not a barrier. And I would actually argue, someone that's over 40 should have, based on their background and experience, should have a better opportunity than younger folks, depending on the kind of job it is they're looking for.
Or how they message themselves. Thank you, Tom. It really does come down in the effort and time you put into how you're going to message yourself. Does anyone have anything else or to add to that, or good? We'll have one more question now. This sort of ties in a little bit in terms of the whole aspect and the repeated concerns about trying to find placement, job opportunities. Someone's looking for an internship. I don't think an internship should be looked at any differently than a regular career. When you're doing an internship, your goal is to try and gain some value and offer value. So if you're looking for an internship from an organization in a time where they're rushing, they're trying to manage the circumstances around them, the focus should be based on what am I learning and what can I offer? I know that I only have this short period of time to give them, but what can I give them now that will make their transition through this pandemic of value? You might not think you're going to gain anything specific to what you're studying, but anything that you can do to participate in the success and the moving forward of a company is a learning experience in itself. Whatever you go into in terms of an internship or a job, what you perceive walking in isn't always going to be what you're going to walk out with. And you have to be saying, okay, I have this space, this is what I want to do. Just because it's not fitting in with what my perceived title is on my education, or what that, they really do need to come up with a better idea in terms of a job title for applying. Even is, what can I give an industry or a company? When you're going to a hiring manager, you're going to make your contacts saying, these are my areas of interest, these are what I can bring to the table, what are the opportunities that I can participate and give you value as an intern. But you need to have something to give them, because they're not necessarily having all the time to sort of vet everybody. You have to be prepared to sort of present that. Does anybody have anything to offer to that comment in terms of internships, students that are sort of bridging what they need to do in terms of finalizing their education program? Or did I actually get that one right?
So I'll add something quickly, just because I have tons of friends who've done internships. You do internships to prove that you have a skill. You get it. An internship is an opportunity to learn a skill. That's all it is. So when you don't get an internship where you want to work, you just need to find something, another activity. It doesn't need to be a job specifically. You need to find an activity that offers a skill similar to what you want. Trish had a great point with volunteering. There are a ton of nonprofit organizations in Calgary right now who would love people to volunteer. Teamwork, low budget opportunities to create value for an organization, large scale marketing through trying to reach people, maybe through online or through mailing lists. There are multiple other avenues than simply a paid or non-paid internship to gain skills. An example that I have is when I was in university, third years typically have internships. I actually decided not to have an internship my third year, and I took a summer school program in California, and completely different than everyone else. And I believe it set me apart because I had a different story. And it's not necessarily about the internship. Obviously, if you want to go into a specific field that requires it, of course. But there are other ways to gain skills outside of an internship that you can leverage, that organizations need support today, especially in Calgary. I think a nonprofit route or volunteering in your community or for like an association would be a great avenue to gain skills.
I'm going to say thank you, Sean. And I know that in a conversation that Karen and I have had on the side is, and one of the things that I've seen from talking to other organizations in the not-for-profit, especially some of the startups that are trying really hard to become viable and have all the tools, all the pieces, but they just need a little bit of support because there's a lot of areas that they don't look at that are our supply chain. They just made so many assumptions. And that's why a lot of organizations right now are really struggling because they just thought supply chain was that, oh, I'll just worry about that later. Or it's just the guy delivering my goodies. Today is the one day where people are starting to realize, oh, what is supply chain? Oh, Lord, I wish I'd known that before. So if you want to be an intern, go to those organizations that you have a pretty good idea don't have supply chain. Say that you want to come in and help them develop to become prepared and resilient moving forward. I can tell you right now that in the not-for-profits I've dealt with in terms of sponsorship or collaboration, they don't think they need supply chain. They don't quite conceive of what supply chain is in terms of it's not just one piece of it. It is the whole package of a complete unit. It's marketing, finance, inventory, access, connecting your needs in terms of events. They don't see that supply chain isn't just one small sort of vague title that we give. It's an entire global unit with a multitude of industries. So don't think about a company that you think is in supply chain. Think of an organization that needs supply chain and you're going to in turn help them. Because then you've shown not only are you capable, but as well as you can say that you participated in supporting organizations that needed your guidance, your knowledge. You'll learn because you'll discover what they don't know yet. And together you might achieve something quite remarkable. And you can utilize that. So don't think that you have to go to a company that you think is in supply chain. Go to an organization that really needs supply chain, which I'm going to guess is probably about 98% of the businesses right now on this earth. So don't limit how you're looking at an internship or even a role. If you are in supply chain, everybody needs you right now. And what can you bring? And that's what you have to start to look at. Anyone want to add to that comment? No?
Yeah, I can go, Cindy.
Okay.
So, a lot of companies that sign up for interns through different various organizations, the end goal is to try before you buy, right? We're looking to, put our interns into full-time positions. So that's, forefront of showing us what you can do, seeing if there's a culture fit to move that relationship past the intern stage. But also, it also gives you guys a lot of touch points within that organization, different departments to network, to make those, strong communication and, I lost the word, sorry, those bonds internally and externally. You can make those contacts and develop those careers. because if the internship stops, and let's say you're helping out in a purchasing department, you're making contacts with other companies and you're selling yourself. So there's a good opportunity on these internships to really focus your career on where you want to go. It might not be the fit that you're looking for, but you can use that to look at future opportunities for yourselves down the road.
Thank you, Greg. Appreciate that. And one of the questions that sort of asks the same point, like whatever job you're getting, am I wasting my time? Whatever role or opportunity you have right now to be employed is probably not a waste of time. You're employed. Let's jump up and down. A lot of people would like to be in your space. So if you're studying in any field, in supply chain, in any space, go to that industry, that job, with the goal to enhance what you're doing and enhance the organization you're with, so that even though it's a summer or it's a short term or a 6-month internship, you have left an impact and you've learned and you've given something more than what was probably anticipated when you started. And then you don't know, as you're doing something, that they might even offer you another opportunity because you're showing more than what you came in with, because they didn't think to look at what else you could bring to the table. And just because you're working now, continue that, but don't stop sort of reaching out and making contacts and asking for sort of other opportunities. The world is dynamic. Smart employers know what's happening. But as long as anybody who leaves for a greater opportunity, there isn't a smart leader out there that will not congratulate you and wish you the best of luck. So take what you have, make something more of it, and don't hesitate. Don't question what you were given. See what you can take to make what you're given better, and so that you leave an imprint or a mark, and you can walk away knowing that that's what you've given. It doesn't matter what you have, it's what you're giving and what you contribute. There was a comment about how do I be entrepreneurial? I'm an entrepreneurial thinker. Every successful person who is going to get a role needs to be entrepreneurial, whether you want to start your own business or you want to contribute to business. The best thing you can do in your job, whatever you have, is what am I doing as an individual that is making my organization I'm with successful? Because if you're not entering in to add value to help the company be successful, your role won't be there because it cannot sustain it. You need to help that business be so successful that they will continue to need your position and they can grow and you can advance in it. So that is being somebody who has had employees. That is something that most successful employees are the ones that look at, I am here to contribute. It's like I'm a contractor, and the more I give, the more I will get. And it is proven time and again. You are not just in a job, you are somebody creating opportunity and success, because what you touch is what you create. So everybody has that. It doesn't matter where you start. Always enter every role and every position you have with that mindset, and you will be fine. It won't happen tomorrow. I look back and I can remember that however many years old I am, it happened. So don't panic about what's going to happen. Worry about today and what you can offer. And I'm going to allow somebody else to participate on this one. Anyone have something to say to that? Karen, I'm going to give it to you.
Yeah, no, I would echo your comments, Cindy, and and everyone else. We're thinking along the same lines, right? Your first opportunity is not necessarily the place that you're going to spend your entire career on, but I can promise you, your first opportunity is where you're going to learn a significant amount about yourself. Whether it's an internship or a full-time role, you'll have that first impression of an organization on what value you want to bring to that organization, but also it's going to imprint on you on where you want to go and what you want to do. And it doesn't mean you need to have all the answers. There's no expectation on any employer that you're going to turn things around within a day. Within a month, 3 months, 9 months, yes. But it certainly embrace every opportunity you have and give it gusto, right? Show them what you're worth, show yourself what you're worth and what value you can bring to any organization. And it will only make the experience more positive. And you'll just keep adding to it. It really does get, better and better as you go along. But embrace the opportunity. Don't look at it as final destination and you're not satisfied. Embrace that opportunity and use it to your advantage and to your employer's advantage. That would be what I would just add to that.
Thank you, Karen. I appreciate everybody still being online. We have run over, and I can tell by the sort of demand and questions coming from the individuals who've been attending. There is a lot out there that people want to know. I'm going to end this with one question for each of the panelists, and then I will remind everybody that they can submit their questions through questions at riskassociation.com. And if they're specific to any of the individuals, if you aren't sure about reaching out to them on their LinkedIn directly, I will more than willingly submit that email and forward it to each person. And if you have any more questions and concerns, we will mention it to you. There are other opportunities that are existing. I know that Tom had submitted or posted something that Supply Chain Canada is working on. Every organization and all the people on here are working at helping. So with that, here's the question. I'm going to start with Trish. What is the one thing that you know now you wish you knew back when you faced uncertainty?
Patience, right? I think we all get so worked up and nervous and worried that we need to take everything with patience. There's value in everything that we learn and we do, whether it's volunteer or it's working at a tea shop. All of those things make us the person that we are. The other comment that I wanted to make sure that I got out is that what we learn over the years of doing different roles, we learn what makes us happy, right? And pursuing those things that make us happy make us more valuable, more better employees, being able to support the business and do the things that increases the business sales, execution, whatever it happens to be. But at the end of the day, it also makes me happy to go home knowing I have achieved something, doing things that I enjoy doing. So I know it's a difficult time. Beginning any career, something new is scary and nerve-wracking, but take patience and have make sure that you value yourself and the skills that you have to be able to present to others. Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you, Tricia. I really appreciate it. Tom, I'm going to allow you to answer this.
Yeah, I think that two things. I spend a lot of time forecasting and looking forward. I'm actually pretty good at it. And sometimes I spend too much time doing that, and it can get a bit overwhelming when you're, especially in times like these, when you get black swan events, as they call them, where, things really buckle the economy or whatever the case may be. One thing that I've learned over the years is that as good as I am at looking forward and thinking about what needs to come next, all I can really control is what I can do today. And the choices that I have in front of me are the ones that I can make. The work that I can do today is the work that I can do. I can't live my life tomorrow today. So I have to focus on what I can do. So whether it's focusing in my efforts on getting a job, focusing in my efforts because I need to focus on my mental health, whatever it is I need to do right now, being and understanding that I can persevere no matter what the situation is, and that things will come back, and maybe there are new normals for us to face, whatever the case may be. But don't get too stressed out forecasting. Forecast and think ahead, but then focus on what you can actually do and accomplish today, and do your best at that. And generally, if you do that every day, it leads to success, in my experience.
I appreciate that, Tom. Thank you very much. Karen?
I have a couple of things I'd like to add. There's two aspects of dealing with a crisis that is unprecedented, right? The reality is it's global. Resiliency. So people are resilient. Organizations can be resilient. Organizations are resilient based on having an engaged workforce. So what I know today, and I've always believed it, An engaged workforce can bond together, and Greg alluded to that earlier, can bond together and rise above whatever is facing them. And it doesn't mean that it's easy, but the combination of an engaged workforce with being resilient allows for people to carve a path forward and have a vision beyond this curtain that we're living in today under pandemic. This too shall pass. We don't know when, but to Tricia's point, we need patience. And we do need some forecasting perspective because we all have things that we need to manage. But I just implore you to, rely on your resiliency and really strive to be that engaged employee with an engaged leadership team. And you can get through this. You will find the opportunity in this pandemic that is creating opportunities where we never thought they were going to happen in the past.
Thank you, Karen. Appreciate that. That sounds great. Greg?
Yeah, from my standpoint, if I could go back in time, one of the things that I would suggest is get involved. That piece of paper that you're going to get out of your diploma post-secondary is not going to be enough to get you where you need to be. Get involved into the associations of what you're taking, make those networking decisions. I did nothing out there. And when I look at all the college recruiting that I've done and I've seen the resumes, I'm really impressed with, the volunteering, the commitment to, supply chain associations, being presidents, vice presidents, treasury, getting involved, because that really impresses and gets your foot in the door a little bit faster and higher than some other students that are coming out. So get involved. Don't sit back and think that things are going to do what they need to do. You got to own your career. And that would be my advice.
Thank you, Greg. Appreciate that. Sean? Since you don't have a lot of time to go back in terms of your memory in your short years on this planet.
Yeah, I think the number one thing that looking back, that I would have done, or that I'm doing now, is asking for help. We're obviously, I think I brought it up earlier, humility. Times are really tough, and it's okay to not know what you're doing or not necessarily know what to do. And I ask for help all the time. I think going to people and simply just physical health, mental health, career health, you're never going to know you're always going to have questions, and people are always willing to support. It's surprising. Like if you reach out to someone simply asking for help, typically they'll do what they can to help you, and it'll just teach you a lot of things that you didn't know. So asking for help is what I would say.
Thank you. I will make a close. So for me, one of the things I have learned, and I've been very colorful at it, is that I don't really know if I failed at anything. I just know some things don't work. So I won't ever say that something failed, but I will say, well, that wasn't probably the best way to engage in that idea. So when you're looking at things, I learned early that circumstances that don't turn out the way you anticipated are a lesson that was the road you might want to shift off. Nothing is a failure. Failure is when you don't keep trying. Quitting is really what comes down to failure. Fear is natural. If anyone doesn't think that us sitting here with what we think is years of experience and knowledge and skill sets, that I was probably half petrified to do this because I was afraid of hitting the wrong button. That's what I would tell myself to remember. I was very fortunate that I had enough people around me that gave me those chances to fail, and I've learned to allow people to fail to keep trying. A good employer will know that if an employee made a mistake that might have cost money, you don't want to get rid of the employee because you need to have them recover the cost. So look at your leadership, look what you can learn from people that don't just sort of stop at a situation that doesn't work. It's kind of like, how can I make this work for me? And I'm sure I'm going to have some feedback from today's event, how I did, and that's a part of learning. And if anything, I really appreciate those that have come on today to help me out. I've been very fortunate that I know these people and I've had an opportunity to get to know them. Sean being aside, these are the kind of people that you start to connect with and you have relationships and you continue to have that network. And so it just keep trying. And we're all in this together. And again, thank you to all of you guys for participating. Thanks for everybody for sticking online. We went a little longer than I anticipated. And again, questions, reach out to us and we will do our best. I know that that's something that I enjoy doing, is connecting people, because the more you give, the more you get. And so take whatever opportunities you have and make that first step. You don't know what's going to happen yet until you keep moving forward. Thank you, everybody. And if anybody has anything else, I would like to thank you all and have a very good day. And we'll start on with the rest of what we're going to be facing with this experience, whatever it's going to be. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.